Your micro brain on climate.
Hello, and welcome to your micro brain on climate, a snippet of a show that I've done before to wet your whistle and keep you entertained while you wait for the next episode proper. I'm Dave. This is a callback to an episode that might be one of my absolute favouriteest, you know. Certainly the episode that most does what I'd originally hoped this show would do when I started it 4 years ago. And it's all about this.
Give me your hat. Why? Because I'm going to puke in it.
Do a little thought experiment for me. Think of something proper rank, disgusting. Maybe it's going to the toilet in a pub, finding that someone's been in there before you and, you know, got poo on things. Maybe it's biting into an apple, and instead of a lovely, crunchy, tangy taste of beautiful, fresh apple, you get mushy, chewy worm. Yum, 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 yum. It don't feel nice, does it? Makes you feel like you want to be sick in your mouth. Maggie the cat, who we met in the last episode of Your Brain on Climate, has a finely tuned disgust reflex. If anything at all is amiss with her food, or if I stick something she don't like under her nose, like some Huel, she backs the hell off, quickly, runs away. And humans are the same. We didn't evolve to be the world-bestriding colossi that we are without a gag reflex that serves us very well indeed, because disgust is a very, very basic emotion, maybe even a sensation, a thing that guides us through life, and it keeps both Maggie Cat and us away from rotten, squishy things that might make us vomit. So far, so bleeding obvious, but let's do another thought experiment. Imagine someone you consider to be a wrong-un. Conjure them to mind. Maybe they're a dictator, or maybe they're someone who's done something awful, something sickening, or maybe it's the boss of an oil company, or someone like that. Think of them, have them in your head, conjure them. What do they look like? How do they make you feel? And imagine yourself as you're doing that, moving closer and closer towards them, closer and closer and closer, until you're right next to them, so close you can feel their breath on your face, so close you can smell them. What does that feel like, being right up next to them? What do they smell like? How would you be feeling? A bit icky, right? A bit disgusted. So what's going on there? Because that's not the same thing. Do the bits of our brain wiring that process physical disgust also light up when we think of bad people? And do they even light up when we think of bad things? Things like maybe climate change. Are we literally, or just metaphorically, or neither, disgusted by that? And of course, does it matter? So back in episode 9 of Your Brain on Climate, I talked all about this to neuroscientist and podcaster Yoel Inbar, all about his area of expertise, disgust. I love this chat because Yoel properly went with it. All right, Dave, he said, okay, I'm game. You want to riff about what this all means for climate change? Let's do it. So I asked Yoel, when we find someone morally disgusting, like a polluter or a pervert, are we actually finding them, like, actually disgusting? Yoel, being clever and wise to my stuff and nonsense, was quick to tell me that no, Dave, it's more complicated than that, which experts often do, to be fair. But nonetheless, this was a properly fascinating bit of a properly fascinating discussion, and I can't recommend the full episode enough. Here's a bit of it. I started to get a bit kind of, well, this is massive, right? Because when, in our society, you'll often hear the word a thing is disgusting. That load of stuff going on in UK politics at the moment, this will date, doesn't matter what it is, where people are saying that's disgusting. What the Prime Minister has done is disgusting, right? So what's happening there? Because he's not, like Boris Johnson is a lot of things, he's not literally disgusting, but for a lot of people he's sort of morally disgusting. And I use him as an example, right? So what's happening when we're associating kind of moral characteristics with disgust?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of debate on that just among people who study this stuff. So for a while, it was thought that to some extent, you know, when people were using this sort of language, that very often that they were literally feeling like at least a little bit of a pang of disgust. And so that, we use this fancy word exapted. It just kind of means, taken from one place and put into another. That
What was
the
that word?
emotion
Exapted.
Exapted. Yeah.
Exapted.
No, it's another, it's one of those like nice pieces of jargon that we use to intimidate the lay people,
Jolly good.
But it just means, it evolved for this, but it's now being used for this. So people thought literally, that people are experiencing a flash of disgust when they're encountering these moral violations that don't have any sort of disgust content in them. And there's sort of a debate that's raging back and forth about whether that's actually true. And my current position is that people are really using that word metaphorically in that case. So they're saying, it's like the thing that you think is repulsive, that you don't want around you, that you want to avoid, not that they're literally experiencing that emotion. But look, you have a different psychologist on, they might give you a different answer about that, right? Like, I think it's a really debated question right now.
Because there is also something about, we're talking a bit about climate change stuff, but I have caught myself in my life, right, with a sort of caricature of a type of person, like, say, evil oil company who is quite happily, spilling oil into the sea and imagining the boss of that oil company and describing the behavior as disgusting, and then almost catching myself sort of imagining what this person looks like. And what I'm imagining that person looking like is kind of sweaty and oily and slimy. And do you know what I mean? Like, all of these things. And I'm wondering if we
100%.
are, to an extent, kind of almost like people are imagining Boris Johnson smells a bit bad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, so definitely there's, I guess you would say anecdotal or historical evidence that not to compare you to the Nazi Party of Germany, but however, having said that, when you look at Nazi propaganda about groups they didn't like Jews, for example, they very much emphasize these viscerally disgusting elements. Like literally, they're oily, they're dirty, they're infested with lice, they smell bad. And so I think that's, kind of a deliberate attempt to push people's disgust buttons. So in that I would say, okay, well, that is a literal physical disgust elicitor, right? Somebody's dirty, they smell bad. The Nazis realized that this makes us more negative towards that group, right? If we kind of automatically start to associate with them with these physical disgust elicitors. I don't know if it's been looked at, what you're suggesting is that people might spontaneously, for the morally disliked, then start thinking of physically gross attributes that they have, right? And I don't know that that's been looked at, but that would be a really interesting, and I think that's definitely something that you could study, right? Say this guy's a child molester. Do you think it's the dude with the oily skin or the dude with the good skin, right? Yeah.
And you wouldn't want to prejudge the scientific process, but it's tempting to imagine that the bits of people's brains that fire up with a physical disgust reaction would fire up when they were thinking of a child molester or something like that. Are there studies being done into that, seeing what bits of the actual brain light up when you show people a morally bad person?
There's some research trying to do that. I would say it's somewhat inconclusive at this point. It's just, the thing is, these tools are just not that great. So the resolution that you get is not that good. And it's not, you want to think of it as this module turned on, right? And in fact, what it more seems to be is that lots of different areas are constantly talking to each other. And so it's this dynamic process that involves, not one area going up or down, but let's say 10, and this guy goes up and this guy goes down, and this sort of dynamic network process. It's just tough to capture, given the technology that we have, right? So that's kind of where you run up against the limits of just what you can do with the imaging right now. So you can say for certain moral violations, the Insta-law again is reacting there. Often those are moral violations that have some physical disgust content in there as well. So then is it the morality per se? Is it the kind of physical disgust stuff? Tough to say, right? And then on top of that, these brain areas always do a million different things, right? So you could be it's coming online because of this. Well, maybe it's coming online because of one of the many other things that area responds to.
I don't like it when you say things are complicated. I want simple
It's very
answers.
tough, and I'm sorry to hear to rain on your neuroscience parade, but it is. It's tricky.
your micro brain on climate.
Plenty more of that in the full episode about Disgust, back in episode 9 from 2021. Do have a listen, and if you like that episode and this show, do riff your way through the back catalogue. Just a reminder, if you're a regular listener or even an occasional one, you like what I do, remember that Yoel and all my guests are paid for their time, and it's only little old me doing this. There's no huge podcast production empire, no Acast or Spotify, which I know shows. So I'd love your support at patreon.com/yourbrainonclimate, and a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and a written review would do enormously wonderful things as well. Look, I'll be back soon with a full-time episode. Until then, take care of yourself and don't lick anything that Maggie Cat wouldn't lick. No, that doesn't work, does it? Anyway, okay. Bye. Bye. Bye now. Bye.